glad to have you back. It's time to look at what the papers, both local and international, are saying here on Daybreak on Arise. These are coming to you live from our studio in Abuja. And we have Dr. Constance Ikoku. Good morning,
Good
Constance.
morning, Ndi. How are you today?
Well, thank God, I'm good.
Thank God. Okay, that's good. Well, this morning to join us to look at the headlines, we will have Chuks Akuna, who is the Executive Director of Authority newspaper. Good morning and welcome to the program, Chuks.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Right, we will go to This Day newspaper immediately. Let's see what This Day has for us. The top story we have here is Finance Act, 50% banks forex gains tax won't affect Nigerians, says federal government and NAS, that's the National Assembly. The National Assembly joint panel summons Cardoso, of course, to discuss this. The proposed Finance Amendment Bill 2024 tax is squarely targeted at banks' forex gains. It's meant to impact or impose a levy. It's not meant to impose a levy on Nigerians. This bill will amend the Finance Act 2023 to provide for the imposition of windfall tax. It will impose a 50% levy on the profit realized by banks on all foreign exchange transactions within financial year 2023. So it's a retroactive law. You know, one wonders if banks or whether banks can go to court to challenge this. The National Assembly and the executive arm of government, they both said this is crucial for reform and, you know, transformation of our economy, and this is really needed. But can one challenge this? You know, it's like rolling back the clock. Why not focus on the current year and the years that are coming? Chuks.
Yes, very interesting. I think the clarification became necessary, you know, considering what recent events in Kenya. We all recall that Kenyans went to the street to protest, you know, plans by government to reform taxation in Kenya. So I think having that in mind, the federal government of Nigeria, you know, had to quickly come out to say, no, that this amendment bill, Finance Amendment Bill 2023-24, is targeted only at banks, you know, the profits made by banks, you know, their forex transactions. Not necessarily, I mean, not that Nigerians will not be affected. Because if you recall, several Nigerians were at the threshold of nationwide protests, and people are on edge, government security agencies are on edge. So this wouldn't be the best time to inflame passions. And I guess that's why the federal government has come out to clarify, to say no, that this is still targeted at profits made by banks, forex transactions.
Well, it's a good point you raised. But when you look at what happens normally in a country, it's often the case that when policies such as this are made, even if it's not regarding banks, when actions are taken and policy decisions are made on financial issues, at the end of the day, it's usually the consumers that bear the brunt, because whatever costs that businesses, you know, have to take on, whether it's banks, whether it's small businesses, whether it's big companies, at the end of the day, they usually transfer those cost implications to the consumer. And that's why you see that the cost of everything is high, because at the end of the day, that is where the burden lies.
Trickle-down effect, you'd said two things on two fronts. And the first one is, you said, you asked the question whether there's a possibility of them going to the courts. Only lawyers can answer that and tell you whether there is that possibility or not. On the second one, I guess that's why the government and the House came out to clarify, you know, that this particular tax is pivotal in the economic transformation journey of the nation. It's based on the profit that the banks are making. It's not their money, they said. So the profits from forex, that it should be taxed, you know, to plow back into the system to help the income or revenue of the government. But then, good, they have said, clarified or try to clarify what affect, you know, the consumer. The point here is, how will they monitor it? How will we know it won't trickle down? That's the snag here, But otherwise, being that it's the banks, I mean, so many people have talked about banks not really contributing to the growth in terms of economy of the nation, in terms of financing SMEs, businesses that are growing up. If the bank will not, in some way, carry it over to the consumers, fine and good. If they can go to the court, fine and good. If they can't, then I guess they have to pay it. But like I said, the question here will be, how do you monitor that, make sure that this does not trickle down to the consumers?
What's the hurry though? If you're a country of laws, why not obey your laws, go by your laws? Why do you have to work on this retroactively? You can allow it to take a place or to commence in the current year or next year, right, Chooks?
Yes, I guess that's why you raised the question of whether or not banks can go to court to challenge that. It's really wrong in societies, democracies, if I may add, that to make laws retroactive, it's like shifting the goalpost in the middle of a match. So it doesn't all go well for investors because you can decide to invest in Nigeria and then on account of this feel that, oh no, I might open a firm, an industry today, and tomorrow the government comes and says no, that there's a new law and this law has to take retroactive effect. So it's not, the optics are not very good, for foreign investors, because it tells so much. It tells a lot about our laws and how our laws have been implemented.
And the operating environment and what government does and does not do.
Well, I did make it clear. It's banks. Be specific. For example, they said that they're not taxing the manufacturers, MAN, because they've lost about 1.7 million already, in losses because of how the economy has run, everything that has had to do with manufacturing, and I mean we'll get to their Guardian talking about jobs lost. So they're not talking about investors. They're talking about specifically about banks and the profits they make from forex.
But whether banks or not, the optics though is also important. If you're a country, let's forget about foreign investors, because we talk all the time as if foreign investors are the one that will save your country. Let's also even talk about your local businesses. Banks are local businesses. Why do you have to use your word, Chooks, change the goalposts? Yeah. It's something the government has to think about how it is perceived, by its citizens in the way that it acts.
Well, the talk has been that banks. Well, I understand where you're coming from, but the talk has been that banks are reaping a lot, and it's time for them to plow back into the system. I mean, that's where the government is coming from.
But in the we should also not forget that in this part of the world, whenever you make such laws, it's okay. Banks, like you said, man is not targeted. Banks and not citizens. But then these banks, they say when hunters have learned to shoot without
birds have learned to fly.
Yes, birds to learn to fly without perching. So these banks too are going to come up with very ingenious methods to actually transfer this cost on innocent citizens.
What?
And that's where the snag is. Like I said earlier, how do we monitor that to make sure, like they've said, they don't transfer it to the consumers?
Well, let's move on to our second story. Punch newspaper. We're going to be looking at the story, Fuel Crisis. Marketers project 700 billion naira monthly subsidy. NMPC mom, as they insist government still paying subsidy, reps probe crude shortage. Also, Dangote eyes foreign markets for refinery products. And then federal government meets Kyari Dangote over dispute. With a landing cost of 1,117 naira per litre for premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, the monthly subsidy has increased to about 707 billion naira. This is what marketers are projecting. Then the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, says this is not sustainable and might lead to an increase in the pump price of petrol very soon. A landing cost for other products such as diesel is 1,157 naira, and for aviation fuel, 1,127 naira. Well, I guess this is saying to Nigerians, fasten your seat belts. There is more bumpy road coming ahead. There's no breather at all. This data has huge implications, and it's clear why the government is keeping silent on this topic. I mean, when they came into government, or when they came into office, they gleefully announced that fuel subsidy was gone. However, I think later when they saw the difficulties and what it will cost and the implications for the price of goods and everything, they decided, you know what, we have to somehow pay some subsidy. But it's good to be transparent about what's going on, Chooks.
Yes, even for those who studied natural sciences, there's what you call latent heat of fusion and latent heat of vaporization in physics. So in other words, you see ice is melting, but when you measure the temperature, it remains the same. But then you say, but it's losing, it's gaining heat. So where is the heat going? In other words, there's a difference between theory and practice. That's why in life, the grass is always greener from afar. You have what you call optical illusion also in physics. You see, there's what they call it mirage. You're on the highway, you think there's a pool of water in front, but when you get there, you discover that it's just an optical illusion.
Wow, physics lesson
yes,
this morning.
I guess that's what Tinubu
yes.
is coming to terms with. It's always easy in class to make
propound theories.
Yeah, exactly. Calculate. You tell a first-time driver that whenever you have a bus tire, never slam the brakes. But the first thing the driver does when he has a bus tire is to slam the brakes. So there's a difference between theory and practice. And I guess Tinubu did not have enough education. He wasn't properly educated about this. He thought that it was something you could just brandish a magic wand and subsidy would be gone. But look at what marketers are projecting: 700 billion naira every month. So it now appears to be putting a lie to the claim by government that, because if you check, Doctor, landing cost over 1,000 naira. So how do you possibly sell something that arrives, for 1,100 plus, for 690 naira?
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Yes.
So, but the government is very embarrassed about this, and they don't actually know how to handle it. That's why agencies like the NMDPRA, it's a bomb, over this.
But this means that things will get worse in terms of inflation, in terms of the cost of goods and services, products, everything, because I think gradually it will move from about 700 naira we're paying for fuel per liter now, depending on where you live. There are people that are paying about 800. So it means that gradually it's going to increase, and we can't imagine what this will do to the economy indeed.
This is where Nigerians will step in. You cannot tell the man on the street to be patient with you, and you are the one that said, let the poor breathe. As at today, they're not breathing. That's the reality on the ground. They're not breathing. Things are expensive. People's income, expendable income, almost wiped out. Even the 70,000 that Labour got is neither here nor there, And that's why some experts or some commentators said at the onset, May 29, when Tinubu made that announcement, he did not sit down to think. It was a spontaneous announcement, probably wanting to please some people. You just launch out to make it. You didn't sit down to make some calculations. Now, all over the world, nations pay subsidies on things. Government cannot say they will not pay subsidies. It's either they find a way to do it. The point is that Nigerians can't keep on suffering. Any attempt, what's his name, former Minister of Sports, is saying that no going back on the protest. And there's a banter between Onanuga, himself, and Showore and all that. It's going to get to a point you probably get what happened in Kenya. Some people are saying, don't do protests, don't. But if you push people to the wall, they're going to react. And right now, frankly, Nigerians are pushed to the wall. So any talk of increasing fuel, whether the landing cost is whatever, it's not just there. Nobody wants to hear that, really.
Right. Chooks, do you think that we should cut the government a slack though, because it's not only Tinubu that didn't understand the mega implications of all this. I think for so many years, a lot of experts, energy experts, journalists, government officials, all sorts of people, everyone was rooting for the removal of fuel subsidy, except Labour, of course.
I argued about this.
Labour saw what
colleagues.
a lot of people did not see. So eventually, we see what this means actually, and how it's not just about the money, but there's also the other angle of, okay, you can pay subsidy, however, remove the corruption and the fraud that is in the system. Then you can see what you're actually paying for.
Telling government to remove the corruption element in subsidy payment is a tall order, because the truth is, I mean, it's human. You know, something sells for 500 naira in Abuja, then you can sell it for 1,000 naira in Kaduna. You know, the pressure will be on you to, I mean, it's pain versus gain. You know, the psychology of crime is pain versus gain. If you discover you want to go rob a bank and discover that it's going to be almost impossible to rob that bank, you know, you could get killed, you know, chances are that the robber will consider that. But if the person feels that it's very easy, he can walk into the bank with a pistol and then, you know, rob the whole bank, he's going to do that. So advising that the corruption element be removed, you know, it's almost impossible, my dear. I'll tell you that for free. So that's why. But like as this said, things are really, really tough for Nigerians. You know, we live with the people, and it's trickier now than during NSAS, because Buhari was in power at the time, and most Londoners didn't feel that they felt that NSAS was sponsored by Southerners.
Yes,
by Southerners.
yes.
Even at the time, Tinubu was even one of the suspects, you know, that Tinubu had a hand in that, in the NSAS protest. You know, so he had to come out to actually condemn it. But you know, that said, so the tables have turned. And now, you know, even Tinubu's home base, you know, I am fortunate, I speak Yoruba very well, I interact with them very well. You know, he's hitherto diehard supporters, you know, they've dumped him. You know, I'm talking about the man on the street, not those who are in government, because I'm sure Bayo Onanuga and Ajuri will disagree with me.
Yes.
But the truth is this: you see, even if we're talking about farming, even if you produce food crops in, say, like Jos, how much would it cost you to move those crops from Jos to Abuja or elsewhere? That's the problem. It is really, really excruciating for several Nigerians, and they're not fine. That's why people are saying that should Northerners, you know, join in the planned protest. It's going to be very, very bloody, because, you know, the psychology of the Northerners, you know, it's different than that of the Southerners. You know, they feel that they've lost. Yes, they feel like they've lost everything, and there's nothing. You can't scare them with death. So these are the issues government has to really consider, you know, and quickly move to save the situation.
Let me even say this here. 2-3 days ago, was it last week, we were discussing about the state of the nation. And the palpable fear is that the way it's going, you know, it's like you get to a fuel station, you want to take fuel. You have a tank. It gets to a place, it fills up, right? Yes. But now the way it's going, things are going, cost of living, is like you start putting fuel in that tank, it has a hole. It's dropping out, it's leaking. So you do not know when it's going to end. Because the way things are now, prices just keep on. You go to buy something today. The next day you go, I'm talking about, I mean, somebody talked about, he sent his wife to go and buy, I think it was a packet of one of these noodles. The wife came back and said something about, okay, let's leave it tomorrow. I think it was 15. By the time she went the next day,
right,
it was 18. Talk about maintenance. Do you know how much we've lost in what you call maintenance of the refineries? I was saying it then, find a way to get these refineries working. If you're saying people are ripping the nation, get them. It's your duty, it's your responsibility. Don't lump everything always on the masses, because they seem not to be talking. It could be dangerous.
And that nicely dovetails into our next newspaper that we'll be looking at, New Telegraph. Can we pull that up? Planned protest address cries of Nigerians eating from dustbin has become a luxury. NLC tells Tinubu. The Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has said that instead of stopping the planned protest, Tinubu should listen to Nigerians and see how he can address the grievances of the public. NLC President Joe Ajero says Nigerians are angry with him. He said Tinubu should invite the leaders of the protest for discussion. Should the president invite the leaders of the planned protest for discussions? We know how it ends, Chooks.
Yes, very interesting. But you see, they wouldn't do that. I can predict that they wouldn't do that, because they'll say, you commander-in-chief, you have the military, you have the police, you have security agencies. But I think it's gone beyond that, because I was discussing with friends, I call them friends, and they said that the difference now is that even these security agents that you're thinking on, banking on deploying to stop these protests, they're also not happy, because they also buy from the same market. There's no market for police officers or for the DSS officers. They're also beaten by the same bug, the inflation bug. And but you see, in government, people are always very detached from reality. They feel that no, you can't come down from your high horse. You're commander-in-chief. You're this, you're that. You can't do that. You can't. These people are noisemakers. They are sponsored by Peter Obi. They are. It's the opposition that's planning this. We saw what's been happening to Ndume, Senator Ali Ndume. In fact, ever since he was offered that measly chairmanship of committee on tourism.
Measly?
Yes, yeah, measly. If you ask me, it's measly, because if you consider, it was meant to humiliate him. Deputy chairman.
Well, are you insinuating, Chooks, that there are chairmanship positions or committees that do not add anything to different sectors of the economy?
No, it's not.
Every sector is important.
No, it's not that it's juicy. We all know.
What's wrong with serving on a committee that is not so-called juicy? Yeah. You are there to serve.
No, it's like asking you to become governor of California, the 5th largest economy in the world, and governor of say Kaduna State.
What's wrong with that? There are people there to serve.
No, I know, but the issue is that this
that
is
wasn't even the reason
this
he
is
gave.
reality.
He said he doesn't know about that.
This is reality. He said that he does, and you see, he's been going around the whole north and inciting. If you allow me to use that word, preaching. He's now the darling of the masses. People now see him as their savior. This is a man who's speaking for us. So if someone like Ndume could speak those things, could say the things he said, I think it's very, very dangerous for government to keep a deaf ear on the cries of Nigerians.
Well, people have also asked Ndume, when Buhari was here for 8 years and ran the economy to the ground, where were all those people speaking? Because what we are experiencing today did not start today. I don't want to sound like APC, because that's always an excuse. But, it's the same APC government in the years.
You see, the danger in what you said is what the leaders of this nation used to keep Nigerians from uniting: ethnicity and what's it again? Religion. The way I look at it is, two wrongs don't make it right. That's one. Fine if he didn't speak during Buhari. What he's saying now, is it the truth or not? That's the way I look at it. What he's saying now, whether he didn't speak then, whether it belongs to the bourgeoisie, what he's saying now, is it the truth? Can we run with it? And that's what it is. But you see, on this issue of, NLC has told the president, and like Chuk said, will they discuss? Let's even give an instance. Look at what Onanuga said. I don't know how he got to think that it was Obi's idea for this protest. Someone replied him and said, how can you say it's Obi? And then he talked about that the people who are trying to do this are trying to cause a revolution. And then he referred him to the statement of the president way back then, where he talked about Nigeria needs a revolution. But now they're in power. It's the other way around. That's always what usually happens.
Right. Yes. Doesn't that indeed then speak to the genuineness of the so-called leaders, including Ndume, the sincerity, the bias? Because if you stand for truth and justice, it should be at all times.
That's what we're...
Not only when it's convenient.
That's what we're crying for. That's what that's the ideal. The ideal is that whether you are for whoever at whatever point in time. But we know it doesn't function that way, even in American politics. I mean, the Senate.
Let's leave America out of this.
No. I'm just talking about. I'm just looking at worldview. I mean, I'm just looking at not the man generally, in politics particularly. It's about interest.
Yeah, I was going to add to what you said.
Please, yeah.
We remember Senator Uche Chukwumeriji of blessed memory. You know, he served he was a very prominent member of the military junta. But he later became a senator, and before he died, we know he became politically born again. So what if Ndume decides to born again? You know, people reserve the right. You know, people reserve the right to change. To change. Right. Yeah. You wouldn't question a man that you used to like ice cream. Why don't you like ice cream anymore? You know, it's his choice. He said, okay, I was part of the problem of Nigeria, but now let me speak out. So we shouldn't crucify Ndume for becoming born again.
This is not a crucifixion. We are analyzing
the
goings on in the country, and also choose. Then he should definitely serve on that committee, you know, very happily, you know, and very delighted, because it's about service to the nation.
But he said he doesn't know anything about it. He said he doesn't know about it, so he doesn't want to go there.
Okay.
So we'll take his statements on face value.
Sorry,
but we know what's happening.
We've had instances in the past where the president of Nigeria, Obasanjo, conferred national honor on the late Chinua Achebe, and the man said, "I don't want this honor. I mean, it's not by force."
All right. We're still discussing the papers. We'll take a breather and come back and continue on the other side. Stay with us. All right, glad to have you back. I still have with me Constance and Chooks here. Constance.
Yes, so we're going to be looking at Guardian newspaper. Guardian, over 30,000 jobs lost to closure of manufacturing firms in 4 years. This report does not come as a surprise. I think the general well-being of the economic and investment climate is challenging, to say the least. It's the usual culprits. There's, you know, inflation, exchange rate, volatility, and a couple of other things. And what this indicates is that if we do not put a lid on these items, on the economy, then there's no rolling back. Chooks.
Yes, I'm very surprised that I imagine that the figure should be higher, should have been higher, you know, 30,000. It
probably is. You know, this is their own special report.
Exactly, because, you know, it's very tough, you know, being a manufacturer in Nigeria. You have to hire a trailer, a 40-foot trailer from Lagos to Abuja. It's about between 1,500,000 and 1.8 million naira, you know, just to hire a truck. So, and then it's not that the truck too will pocket all the money. You know, he's going to spend like 800,000 naira on diesel alone, you know, and then of course spare parts and what have you. Then for your workers, how much you actually need to pay your workers, you know, who have to come from Yanya or Maraba, you know, every day. So they also spend about, on the average, 50,000 naira every month on commuting. So it puts so much pressure, and because of this, several workers have now devised means, you know, to beat this. Some of them sleep over, and it's putting a lot of strain on families, you know, newly wedded couples, you know, a man is sleeping out, you know, on you know, blaming this on the cost of moving. And so apart from the economic challenges, strain is putting on Nigeria, it's also putting social pressure on families. And a country, the well-being of citizens should be paramount on the minds of leaders. So we've seen several developed countries like Japan, you know, who are spending so much money trying to organize social events for people to get married, because if there's no family, you know, family is the basic unit of any society. If we implement policies or put in place policies that will affect the basic unit of society, that's the family, you know, it's very sad. It's very sad commentary on Nigeria.
Let's not also forget that in some offices, including federal government offices, people are having to come to work maybe 3 times a week because of the cost of transport. And then you then have to think about what that does to productivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, 7,500 each year for 4 years. That's what he's talking about. And they say health is wealth. In fact, I don't know about Abuja, but I know that in Lagos, then what people, if I was here one day, I learned that on Monday I had an issue, you know, getting to work, and one of my colleagues told me, don't you understand, Mondays, everybody goes out on Monday.
Yes.
But then some now stay back over the week and don't return because of trying to, manage their finances. It happens in Lagos, So it's a tough terrain for businesses out there. It's really a tough terrain. You have to grapple with the cost of fuel. You have to grapple with the cost of light. I mean, most of the manufacturers were crying about the band A stuff and what they are spending, and then you have to grapple with the cost of corruption, and they too buy this raw materials they buy to help their business function.
Multiple taxes and charges.
And then, thank you, Constance, multiple taxes that they cry about every day. That I guess that was why the federal government had to come out to talk about that.
Exactly.
So it's really not. I don't know.
It's not a laughing matter.
It's tiring. When you weigh this against the fact that a lot of these businesses are small, micro, medium, then you understand why this burden. It's almost impossible for them to carry.
And yes, the SM, now you talked about, we're not even talking about, the people that really run an economy are SMEs.
Right. Exactly.
And then SMEs are the people that are feeling the full brunt.
Right.
They don't have the light, the big businesses can even manage, but the SMEs who run the economy, so what does that happen to the economy? Chicks was talking about social effect. Then of course you have the economic effect where the SMEs don't have enough of what they need to run their businesses. So it's a very trying period for businesses.
It is a trying period for Nigeria as a whole. So hopefully we get out of this. We'll see how that goes. Let's quickly also go to, we have one other story. Business Day, don't know if we have it there. Business Day, Nigeria's debt burden sets off reform alarm. Nigeria borrowed in the last 9 years to a hilt. It says, as at now, our debt burden is at 117.5 trillion naira. That's as at March 2024. There's scant gains to show for this borrowing, according to this report. And then, for instance, it says the Abuja Light Rail, which government took a Chinese loan to build at a cost of $823 million, and it costs $50 million a year to service. Today, it's in no state to earn the revenues required to pay that money back. Chooks.
Yes.
This is just one instance.
And the tragedy of the whole situation is that the persons, you mentioned 9 years, apparently it's the blanket, from Muhammadu Buhari up till Tinubu. Tinubu's just been a year in office. So if you calculate Buhari's 8 years plus, that's 9 years. So it's the APC government. I've covered the political parties for several years, so I'm not an advocate of, this is APC, this is, because apparently, it's very clear that
a lot of them are similar.
There's no difference, in APC and PDP and, of course, Labour. All those who are in Labour today were in PDP or ACN at the time. But then...
But to a large extent, when you review what happened in the economy, socially and politically between 1999 and when President Buhari came into power, there was a little bit of difference, in terms of the ideologies and the policies that the different parties executed.
You see, like we talk about laws. There's no shortage of laws in Nigeria. It's implementation. So, you see, it's the same people, but then, you ask yourself, who was at the helm of affairs?
Exactly.
Buhari, with due respect, lacked capacity, and we know that, And so when he became president, people said, you raise a lot. Look at what's happening in America. People ask questions, people ask questions, or asked questions at the time, this man is not fit to be president, He's never improved himself since 1980, since he was overthrown in 1984. People said it doesn't matter. He had no school certificate. People say it didn't matter, It didn't matter. Now it's mattering. So that's the problem. Because, you see, it's a tree. In leadership, a tree makes a forest. We say a tree doesn't make a forest, but in leadership, because as people learn, people want to emulate those they see at the top. So Buhari ran Nigeria and ran. We've gone beyond that, But Tinubu came with promise to actually change the system. He came with renewed hope. But as it is same, you know, these hopes have been dashed.
Do you think that it's too early though? I mean, it's just a year. It has 3 more years.
No, but you see, I mean, you've covered politics too. Politicians normally put their best foot forward. That's why we celebrate 100 days in office and a year in office, you know, yeah. So if the morning they say tells the day, you know, if this is, I want to share this joke. If a mechanic said when are we going to have the next presidential elections? They said next. He said how many months? They said no. It's he said no. He said so. This is just 1 year. That to him is like 4 years. You know, if this 1 year is what he will experience, you know, that, you know, God forbid, you know, and things like that.
Right.
So you know, leaders put their best foot forward. So if this is what we're going to experience in the coming years, I mean,
right.
I wonder what.
Let's take this other story on business day still.
Right.
Money transfers into Nigeria hit 6-year high on CBN reforms. Dollar inflows through international money transfer operations has surged. Dollar inflows rose by 39% in the first quarter of this year. Analysts said this is easing foreign exchange liquidity. This is mainly from diaspora remittances. The CBN has paid off foreign exchange backlog to airlines, reduced number of exchange rate windows, and made dollar access straightforward. A little bit of light down the tunnel, or an array of light in the midst of a multitude of negative stories, indeed.
Well, it's interesting because you pointedly targeted where the inflows are coming
from the diaspora.
Yeah, diaspora. Because I was thinking, ordinarily me, I hardly want to go to the bank. I like transfers, but you know that so many people are not transferred. I don't know. Well, let me not say so many because I don't have an empirical data. But the point is that because banks are charging so much, you do this, they put this amount. You do this, they put this amount. So some people have resorted to keeping their money either within their pockets, their wallets, or their house. But it's interesting to realize that the diaspora is remitting money, so the transfers are coming from there. It helps the economy grow.
Well,
now,
the CBN needed to do that reform because you need that foreign exchange.
Which was good. So you could give kudos to the CBN for doing that. But then look, Nigeria ranks 4th among countries with the highest debt to revenue ratio.
Yes.
Signaling a high risk of debt crisis. Only Sudan, war-torn country,
Yemen,
Venezuela, and Yemen.
Yemen, yes.
All these are, apart from Venezuela, all these are war-ravaged countries, have higher debt to revenue ratios than Nigeria. I remember Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala saying that, telling governors we need to save because every money was let's share. And he was saying we need to save, and nobody was listening to her. And that's where we are at now. America, as it is, I think is the greatest indebted nation in the world. Yeah. You know. But the point is, if you're borrowing, because there was an instance given here of a guy who was borrowing, but
in America it's different because you know they issue the dollar for the world, so it's a totally different.
And that's where the snag is, because you talk about dollars, everything is dollarized, yes. And that's what the problem is. But I wasn't even talking about them issuing dollars. I'm talking about the fact that if you're borrowing, I have never ever liked borrowing, never, you know, because it puts you. It just causes your heart to skip a beat when you see the person you borrowed money from, you know. But the point is, if you're borrowing for investment to get revenue, beautiful and good. Yeah. But if you're borrowing to spend expenditure, what do you call it? What do you call labor cost and all that? It becomes dangerous, and that's where we are now. I don't know how we're going to get around that, but that's the problem.
But apart from the CBN reforms on this particular international transfers, it could also be that families in Nigeria are demanding more financial assistance from their works abroad, and they're having to send that money.
I was going to say that because
and they're not finding it. They've managed to send, but they're also not finding it easy to send.
You know, like some of us who have, I mean, most Nigerians have relations abroad. You know, the pressure on those abroad is enormous. I mean, you've lived there. You know how it is. You know, everybody thinks that you just pick dollars on the streets.
Yeah.
Not at all. It's not easy to live abroad.
It's
Let
not.
me tell you that.
You know, they don't know how much you pay for rent, you know, monthly, you
For
know,
light.
how much you pay for light, how you
Basically everything,
insure
your
your
tax.
car, you understand? So, but you know, they can't also, because they can't afford to come back to Nigeria, you know, as it were. So
Well, some
they are
can.
forced, no, they are forced to actually remit, they actually remit. Because if you look at the number of applicants for foreign visas, you know, to Europe and of course to the Western world, you know, generally, you know, even to East Asia, you know, it's surged over the past.
The Jabba syndrome.
The Jabba syndrome. So whenever, you know, people raise all they can, they sell their cars, they sell their houses, you know, they send somebody abroad, you know, so that he can start working and remit, you know, monies back to Nigeria.
Well, thank God for some diaspora families. They really, when you go to some communities in Nigeria, without that diaspora remittance, it's impossible for them to live. You know,
Wow.
it takes care of family problems, all sorts. You know, so
Wow.
the diaspora is, and the diaspora should have a reward for that, and that's why they've been saying we need to also vote in the election.
That's why that's what we're talking
you know,
about.
but luckily you can't even run free elections, so I wonder whether you'll be able to run a good diaspora voting. So let's not even start that. You know, let's go to the international top stories to see
Well,
what
you can
we
try,
have for
because
you.
if you don't try, you never know how to correct.
Well,
Exactly.
the journey of 1,000 miles, like you said, starts.
Begins.
Yeah, so you can start to work towards that. Let's see. Well, we have Daily Graphic this morning. Taxman hunts for evaders connected to tax again. The Ghana Ministry of Finance is working with the Revenue Authority of Ghana to clear up data on taxpayers to ensure more people are roped into the tax net. The data indicates that there are 7.4 million eligible taxpayers, but around 1.91 million are active. 5.4 million are inactive taxpayers, and the rest are just dormant. The ministry said identifying taxpayers and the location of their businesses is a challenge. Well, tax is essential for, you know, to fund public services, whether it's roads, education, healthcare, infrastructure, government operations, and all of that. However, citizens will always ask, when you collect the tax, how do you spend it?
Yeah.
Is it spent judiciously? Chooks.
Exactly, and that's a big question. You know, if I talk, you say, you know, I'm talking about Africa in negative light. But the truth it remains that we're not used to paying taxes in Africa, and that's why our leaders also behave as they wish. Because you know, growing up, you know, taxpayers money. If you had taxpayers, you know, actually people paying from their pockets, you know, no governor or president or senator will just go and buy a house in London and people will keep quiet. So because you see, it's give and take, it's a give and take thing. You can't use my money to fund your lavish lifestyle. You know, you are telling people to pay more taxes. You're telling them to cut down on cost of on their expenditure, but you're appointing more ministers. You're buying more SUVs for them. You know, nobody asks what is the ceiling on number of cars a minister should use in Nigeria, for instance.
And what kind of car?
What kind of car? You understand? What kind of car should they use?
Why does it have to be a luxurious car?
Yes, and then we saw a minister justifying why she should spend 1.5 million to fuel her car, and people are wondering. Some people have not seen such monies in their life. Then this is just to fuel your car. So you cannot be talking about people paying their taxes when you're not actually, even the one they paid. You can't even justify, you know, that, you know. Aside the tax, you're asking for loans, you're writing every day to assembly. Look at what happened in Kaduna, the drama in Kaduna. When Ubasani was the chairman Senate committee on loans, and El-Rufai applied for you know, to get loans. You know, Bansadi said, no, I know this man, you know, hold me responsible if he fails and all those things. Today he's governor and he's hunting El-Rufai.
Interesting. The state assembly is hunting El-Rufai.
Which behind the hunt?
The state assembly.
Or wizard.
The state assembly, you know, is the one hunting El-Rufai. But Chooks, to your point, look, one of the reasons why it's difficult to collect those taxes is because we have economic systems that are not highly developed.
And data.
It's very unstructured.
Biometrics.
Yes, a lot of it is informal. So it will take conscious, deliberate effort to work on this over time. But if you collect that tax, make sure that you use it well. Let's quickly go to another story. Okay.
I thought you went, okay.
There's a second story, then you can come in. Daily Graphic. Arab Africa Continental Consortium will ensure rapid development, according to President Akufo-Addo. So he was attending this forum. And it's telling us, so everybody has, you know, Europe-Africa Forum, US-Africa Forum, Russia-Africa Forum, everyone's forum with Africa. When are we going to have Africa, you know, forum for others? This partnership, or this so-called, nobody is going to give you the partnership. You would have to be very deliberate about what this partnership will be, that it should be a win-win. African countries have everything they need to run their economies, but they are not realizing that. And it's like people are giving them token chokes. Oh, well, no, just take off from there.
Well, it's a good stuff. It's a good deal. The other day, Dangote was talking about the fact that he will need 36 passports.
Visas? Yeah.
Visas to tour. So when Africa realizes, like somebody said, the foreign world will not build your country for you.
Not at all.
It is you that will, they can't be more patriotic than you. It is you that has to do your own. So if this is to say that Africa is realizing that we have to get together and build our own continent, then fine and good. On the tax issue, tax is good. No doubt about it, because you have so many things to do with tax. And like I will always say, two wrongs don't make it right. Pay your tax if you have to pay your tax. But the point is that you find out that it's even the poor masses or civil servants, because it's taken from their earnings immediately, that really pay tax. The big wigs don't particularly pay tax.
That's a blanket statement. Maybe they don't pay enough. Maybe they don't pay enough
because they under declare.
Or enough.
Look at taxi drivers around town. I believe taxi drivers in Abuja. You see, before 12 they have to buy a ticket. It's mandatory. They have to buy a ticket. If they are caught after 12 without that ticket, their vehicles are seized and what have you. But I want to quickly talk about strategy. You see, I was watching a very interesting documentary about tomatoes. You know, they call it red gold last night.
Red gold. Red gold. It becomes so expensive.
Yes, they stand China. China is not part of their culinary culture in China. They're not tomato consumers.
Okay.
Chinese eat more of pork, you know. But China understood how powerful tomatoes are. And in 20 years, they built out a plan. And 20 years today, China is the biggest producer of tomato
really
paste. Yes. And even at brands like Gino are from China. They say they produce the concentrate and send to Italy. Then they water it down, then put it in bottles.
Or in sachets.
Sachets, and then sent to countries in Africa. And you ask yourself, what really is going on? Like you said, you see, nobody, they say, even the Bible said, love your neighbor as yourself.
As yourself.
Nobody loves his neighbor more than himself.
Right.
Look at countries like Ivory Coast. That's why I commend economy like Ivory Coast. When Ivory Coast realized that cocoa, which is their main export crop, was facing problems, you know, chocolates, you know, because the whites, they eat a lot of chocolates for dessert. But because of cardio problems, it's okay, they won't eat chocolate. They prefer cashew nuts. Ivory Coast diverted its energies to cashew. And today they're the largest cashew producers in the world.
Okay, let's see whether we can go through these two newspapers quickly. The Guardian, first of all. In The Guardian, senior Democrats throw weight behind Harris to take on Trump. Vice President attracts Pelosi's backing amid flood of endorsements. And quickly, also, The Independent, 700 million pounds to send 4 people to Rwanda. So Home Secretary was saying that this Tory plan with Rwanda was so expensive. It was the worst waste of taxpayers' money that she has ever seen.
It's really happening for Harris. In 24 hours, she set a record already. And she has got more than half of the delegates needed. The man team was talking about coming into, who knows him? He should not waste his time. I think it's Harris from the look of things. And it's quite interesting. Pelosi has thrown in her weight now. It's just remaining Obama, which
powerful
is what...
Pelosi, very powerful woman.
Which is what Obama does. Even during Biden's own, he waited until it was clear. Then he threw
smooth operator, Pelosi.
and Harris, you see, I think she's a woman of destiny. You know, she's a woman of, you know, she's the first person, you know, the first
black woman,
Asian color. You understand? And You know,
Black
it has thrown the Trump
No,
campaign.
but they say Asian color.
Yes,
Black
it has
woman.
thrown,
Her father is black. Her mother is South Asian.
it has thrown,
He's black.
It has thrown, Harris's emergence has thrown the Trump campaign
in fear.
Yeah, fear because
they don't even know how to handle
exactly
her.
because they even say, you know, they are used to calling Joe, you know, Sleepy Joe,
Sleepy Joe.
But now, you know, he's
Sleepy
weak,
Joe has
he's
gone
weak,
to sleep,
he's
retired.
weak. And then this woman, you know, you can't accuse her. And this woman is now pressing, as you know, let me use the local balance, pressing Trump's neck. You know, she's been a prosecutor all her life. He said,
and Trump is a felon.
A felon. So
you know,
she's using that, you know, to the chagrin.
It's interesting
to
what's
Trump's
happening.
Trump's chagrin.
It's interesting.
I think we've
I
run
think
out of time.
we'll leave it there. Thank you. Quite interesting this morning. Thank you so much, Constance and Chooks. Wonderful. I'm sure you enjoyed yourself out there. All right, we'll be back tomorrow on Daybreak. Thanks for watching. Next on the agenda, of course, will be the morning show. And like you know, here it's a full day ahead, and every moment does indeed matter. I am Ndi Amugu, thanking you for watching.